In this video, we'll use objective facts to compare the aircraft carrier construction capabilities of the Chinese and U.S. navies over the past 15 years. We'll show you that the U.S. Navy is losing to China and is in deep trouble. Earlier this month, the U.S. Navy publicly admitted that the construction and delivery of the CVN-79 USS John F. Kennedy have been delayed yet again. Its service entry, originally planned for July 2025, is now pushed back to March 2027. For the already struggling U.S. Navy, this is another major disaster. Delays for the Kennedy aren't even news anymore. For years now, the U.S. Navy has routinely announced that the Kennedy won't be finished on time and needs more time. Remember, construction on the Kennedy started way back in February 2011 at Newport News Shipbuilding. It's already taken over 14.5 years to build. If it does finally enter service in 2027, its total construction time will hit a record-breaking 16 years. To understand just how disastrous a 14-plus-year build time for one carrier is, let's look at the speed and capability of the U.S. Navy's main rival, China. Let's see what the Chinese Navy has achieved since the Kennedy started construction in 2011, and compare how long each took to build their latest supercarriers. Back in February 2011, when the USS John F. Kennedy began construction, China had 0 aircraft carriers. Their ship bought from Ukraine, the Varyag, was still being refitted. It wouldn't enter service as the CV-16 Liaoning until the next year. In November 2013, a mere 2.5 years after the U.S. Navy cut first steel on the John F. Kennedy, China commenced construction of its first homegrown aircraft carrier, the CV-17 Shandong, at Dalian Shipyard in northern China. By March 2015, a full 5 months before the Kennedy, the Shandong had its keel laid and entered the dry dock assembly phase. When China's Shandong was launched in April 2017, the Kennedy wasn't even half built. When the Kennedy was finally launched in late October 2019, the Shandong had already completed multiple sea trials and entered service with the Chinese Navy just 2 months later. Now, to be fair, the Shandong is a 60,000-ton carrier using ski-jump takeoffs and arrested landings. It's essentially a copy and improvement of the Soviet Kuznetsov class, significantly smaller and simpler than the Kennedy. But the PLA's CV-18 Fujin, set to enter service within the next 2 months, is a direct comparison to the Kennedy. It's a supercarrier using electromagnetic aircraft launch systems, EMLS, just like the Kennedy. This makes it perfect for comparing U.S. and Chinese carrier building capabilities. China only completed EMLS development in 2017. Construction on the Fujin began in 2018, more than 7 years after the Kennedy started. Yet, just 2 years later in 2020, it had its keel laid, completing the workload that took the Kennedy 4.5 years. Less than 4 years after construction began, the Fujin was launched in 2022 in a highly advanced state of completion. Compare that to the Kennedy's 8 years. In May 2024, the Fujin began its first sea trials. At this point, its construction progress had overtaken the Kennedy's. Just last month, Chinese state media began heavily promoting the imminent service entry of the Fujin. China started the Fujin 8 years after the Kennedy, yet it could enter service a year and a half sooner. This 9.5-year swing reveals a massive gap in carrier building capability between China and America. In the 14 years since the Kennedy started construction in 2011, the Chinese Navy went from having 0 carriers to having 3 active carriers, capable of dual carrier operations beyond the first island chain. Meanwhile, the U.S., plagued by the Kennedy's repeated delays, faces a shrinking carrier fleet next year. China didn't just add 3 carriers, it also experimentally built a multi-role big-deck warship, technically classified as an amphibious assault ship, equipped with EMLS and capable of operating 30-ton-plus aircraft. For the U.S. Navy, things are set to get worse. The next carrier, the USS Enterprise, CVN-80, has already been confirmed as delayed again. Meanwhile, last month, multiple intelligence sources confirmed that China's first nuclear-powered supercarrier has had its keel laid at Dalian Shipyard and entered the dry dock assembly phase. At Jiangnan Shipyard, where the CV-18 Fujin was built, Another conventionally powered supercarrier is under construction. For the first time, China is building two carriers simultaneously. Judging by their previous speed, both of these Chinese carriers will likely be completed and delivered before the Enterprise enters service. This means that by the late 2020s, the Chinese Navy could have 5 aircraft carriers. That might seem like only half of the U.S. Navy's 11, but remember, the U.S. Navy has to cover 2 vast oceans, while China, for now, concentrates its decisive combat power in just one theater, the Western Pacific. Add to this the U.S. Navy's 36-month-long deployment cycles, compared to the PLA's more flexible, shorter cycles, and the actual availability of U.S. carriers is much lower. Out of 11 U.S. carriers, typically only 3 to 4 are deployable at any time. In contrast, the PLA's 2 active carriers have conducted dual carrier deployments twice in just the past 8 months. The U.S. must wake up to this dilemma and find solutions. Otherwise, it risks losing everything in the strategic contest in the Western Pacific. The carrier fleet renewal problem is bad enough for the U.S. Navy, but it's far from the worst. Other large surface combatants are an even more critical Achilles heel. We'll make more videos soon, thoroughly analyzing the U.S. military's current force structure challenges. Be sure to subscribe to our channel.